What are some of the other things we use daily? Maybe some of the X and Flex machines or pedalers or bikes, treadmills. You need to check these equipment pieces to make sure that they're safe so that the little pieces are tight. It seems a little ridiculous. However, sometimes we look at something and we can see that there's something wrong. We can document that here and say changed or whatever. You can make comments underneath. You can do a little star and say, you know, stopped using, whatever. If it's okay, just put a check mark. If it's not, put a star and then write the note somewhere else. So some of the things that were mentioned, for example, if you use pulleys with residents, then you're supposed to check the pulley cables to make sure they're not fraying. If you're using TheraBand with the residents or TheraTube, you need to check it to make sure it's not cracked or fraying and that it's going to break when they use it against resistance. If you're using bikes and treadmills, it's just to make sure that they look sturdy and that nothing is loose. The seats are good and tight on the bikes. The X and Flex, that the pedal straps are tight. Just things like that. I guess as you're putting the residents' feet into the pedal straps of the X and Flex or the pedaler, give them a tug and make sure that they're safe. Wax bath. So if you may do wax bath for your residents once a week, for example. Walmart, department stores, they sell great little candy thermometers for $3 or $4. I suggest just picking up one of those thermometers and keeping it in the home, and just if your wax bath does not already have a temperature indicator in it, you can just hold that thermometer in the middle of the wax for a couple of minutes until the temperature stops rising, just to ensure. Here you can write wax temp, safe range between whatever it is suggested for that wax bath. Some of them are low temperature paraffin baths and some of them aren't. So just check in the manual to see what the operating safe range is for that wax bath and write it on your form so that when you're checking it off on the days that you use the wax bath, you're indicating that you've checked that the wax bath is in the safe temperature operating range. Hydrocollator, making sure that again, the water isn't too hot or the water is clean, whatever. That the hot packs aren't burst open. When you look at the monthly form, depending on the wax bath and the hydrocollator, you need to check in the instruction manual, because all of them are a little bit different, as to what the suggested cleaning schedule is. So for example, if you need to clean out the wax bath on a monthly basis, unplug it, let the wax go hard, replug it in so that the wax starts to melt on the outside, unplug it again, take out that big hunk of wax, clean out the wax bath, put the wax back in, or change the wax if the wax is dirty. Hydrocollator, you would need to unplug it, let the water cool down, empty it, clean it out, refill it, plug it back in. Okay, just an example of some things to check monthly. And you would write it on the same thing, so you could document that you checked it in January, checked it in February, checked it in March. You can either check it or you can indicate the date that it was actually checked in that month. So if you checked it on January 15th, you'd just write 15 in January. Okay. Another actually example that they suggested was for a TENS machine, just to make sure that the electrode wires don't look like they're loose or that there's actual wire showing. For the chest percussor, the mechanical percussor, the same thing. It has an electrical cord, so making sure that the cord looks safe. I keep rolling my eyes, don't I? Annual preventive maintenance equipment. So the college auditor that came to visit with me did mention that even though the home owns the equipment, I may be the one using it. For example, the wax bath or the hydrocollator, or the treadmill. I went to my home's administrator to find out who was coming into their home on a regular basis to check their machines. So they've got blood pressure, temperature, pulse O2 oximeters. They've got bathtubs with heating and temperature controls and things, and they have to get them checked as well. So I asked who the company was that was coming in, and in our home it was Aramark, and they actually can do the verification of ultrasound, hydrocollators, wax bath, TENS machines, treadmills, bikes, things like that, the mechanical or electronic type equipment. And so I just asked our administrator to make sure that when the biomechanical engineer comes in from that company, Aramark, that he also have those physio equipment on his list to check. Some of those equipment are actually donated by us, and some of them belong to Physiomed Peaks. However, she had no problem adding them to her list because he was coming anyways, and it shouldn't take him that much longer. So when I know that the biomedical engineer comes in to check, I just need to document on here. To our home, he comes in January and July. So I'll be able to list those pieces of equipment on here that that biomedical person will be checking, and I'll just indicate the date that they were checked. So the next time that the college comes to do my audit, I'll have all of these documents clearly in place for them to look at, so that there's no question that I am having all of the machinery and electronics checked on a regular basis. Okay, in nursing homes, there is another form that we like the PTAs to fill out, and the PTs as well, and it's called the Resident Progress Report. And the subtitle is Physiotherapy Support Personnel Feedback. Basically, in nursing homes, they have annual interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary meetings where the resident, the team members from the home, and the family are invited once per year to get together to discuss the resident's progress over the past year. And as a physiotherapist, I used to attend these meetings, and I found that a lot of times there was a lot of time spent on dietary complaints or kitchen complaints or nursing complaints, and the physio part really didn't take all that long to discuss. It was basically the family wanted to know, is my loved one walking? How are they doing? What are they doing in treatment? How often are they supposed to get their treatments? Do they cooperate? And are they doing better, worse, or the same? That's basically all they wanted to know, and it would take me 3 or 4 minutes, and sometimes I'd be in there for a half an hour or 45 minutes for one resident's meeting. So we came up with this resident progress report for that reason, because all of the information can be then put in written form and submitted to the nurse or whoever may be responsible for giving the physio information during that meeting. In some homes, it is the support services manager, the resident services manager, the programs manager, the DOC, whoever it may be, and in your home you'll know who to give it to. If you're not sure, contact support office or me and I will let you know. Resident name, date of birth, the date the report was prepared, and the date of the review or the date of the meeting needs to be filled out. Then for mobility, you just indicate if the resident is independent, if they walk with the walking program only, if they're non-ambulatory. If they can walk, you fill out the rest. What equipment do they use? How much assistance do they need? Approximately how far do they walk? Are there any changes in their mobility recently? In some cases, they may really need the physio's input for a certain resident. I just don't think it's necessary for us to go to all of the meetings all of the time. But having this written down also, if the physio does want to go to the meetings or feels that the input is necessary, or the nursing home really wants the input of the physio, it's okay to go. And having this filled out will be a good summary for the physio and make it easier for them to share the information with the team and with the family and the resident. And in some cases what happens is when the physio goes, they allow the physio to do their part first, and then the physio is allowed to leave and go assess a resident or two before the next resident is done. So it is a good way to have the integration with the other teams and to have the input and the sharing between the disciplines. So the next part of the report is the interventions currently being provided. So here the PTA can circle the different treatment programs that the resident is receiving, and if there needs to be further specification of what it is, like ultrasound, they might want to write right shoulder or TENS, low back, or wax, hands, or something like that. Planned frequency of treatment, you would write down how many times in the treatment plan the physio wants the resident to be seen. So it may be 5 times per week for walking, 3 times per week for the rest, or 3 times per week, and that's it. Cooperation, motivation, attitude, and treatment. Is the resident always willing? Are they needing motivation to participate, or do they often refuse? You would check off whichever one. If you're preparing this report for the month of July, the meetings in July, you would go back to your program log for June, and count how many times the resident attended their treatment in June, and just write the number, and how many days did they refuse treatment in June. And you can just write in parentheses June with the year so that they know what period you're reporting on for the past month. And here, comments, concerns. Do you as the PTA feel that the resident is doing better, doing worse, or unchanged? I have an asterisk there because I, for legal purposes, need to say that as a PSP or a PTA, you cannot do any form of evaluation, and you're giving your opinion based on what you see in treatments. It's not based on evaluation. You would then print your name and sign your initials, or sign your name, and there's room at the bottom for physiotherapist comments. So what I would ask is that the PTAs fill this out 2 weeks before that annual meeting is scheduled. Give this to the PT so the PT has the week to fill it out and add their comments, and the PT, you would be writing whatever you feel is appropriate, whether it's their Tonetti score, their TUG score, what's their risk of fall, have you seen any changes, what has been significant over the past year, because this is kind of like the year in review. And then give it back to your PTA, and the PTA will submit it to whoever is going to be giving the information in the meeting, whether it be the DOC or the support services manager or whomever it is for your home. If the PT is the person going to the meeting, you would just keep it. You can still write your comments, but you would bring this with you to the meeting, and then you could leave it, and the nursing staff can staple this to their nursing sheets that summarize the last year as well. So it's permanently in the residence chart. It's not part of the physio documentation. It's part of their annual review meeting documentation. I think I wanted to say something else. No, maybe that's it. Oh, I know. Sorry. We are also in the process of developing a resident report card, and that will probably replace the resident progress report. So when that report card is available, we will let you know how to fill that out and who to send that to. It has been requested by a number of homes that we actually have something more like a report card versus just an overview of what their treatment is, and so we're working on that currently, and when it's ready we'll let you know. Okay, now we're going to be discussing the physiotherapy 2-month program log, and this is what it looks like. And basically, this is one of the most important pieces of documentation for PTAs in all home settings, nursing homes, retirement homes, and community homes. This is where we're saving you lots and lots of documentation time by indicating the treatments that the resident are receiving underneath the program list here. You have 13 spots, and at the top you'd be writing the resident's name and their date of birth, because we do need the 2 identifying pieces of information for the resident. Here you see month, so you'll be able to enter the month and the year there and on the bottom half of the sheet, because basically the top half up to here is for 1 month and the bottom half of the sheet is for the 2nd month. So you're able to record 2 months of treatment data on the one sheet for the one resident. Examples of what would be entered under the program title here would be walking program, and then in brackets gait training, or walking program and in brackets fitness benefits. After gait training or fitness benefits, you would also put in brackets number of feet, like the number sign, feet, or number meters, because when you indicate that the resident has walked, if they walked on the 1st of the month, you wouldn't only put a check mark, you're actually going to indicate the actual distance that they walked. So if you're measuring it in feet, you would write walk program, gait train, and then in brackets number, the number sign, feet. So all of the numbers that are indicated here are actual numbers of feet that the resident walked. If we have just a check mark, the reason we don't do that is when anybody is looking at this program log, all they see is the resident walked, but they can't see any progression, improvement, or decline in how far the resident can walk.